Hi, everyone. I am Connie Zabel-Schmucker, Advocacy Director at Bicycle Garage Indy. Thanks for joining us for family biking, our bicycling lunch and learn topic for today. I've got Sean Hawk, who's the manager of Bicycle Garage Indy downtown, and Ross Reinhardt, who lives up in Fishers and does a lot of biking with his family. So they're our family biking experts. They're going to give us their tips and experiences that they've had riding with their family. But I have a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on in event wise, so I want to go over those and also do a little bit of housekeeping. So the bicycling lunch and learns are a program of the Cycle Commuter Task Force, which is made up of Bike Indianapolis, Bicycle Garage Indy, Central Indiana Bicycling Association, otherwise known as CIBA, and Commuter Connect. And we put these lunch and learns on online from 12 to 1 on the second Thursday of the month from February to October. So we've got a couple of more programs coming up through October, but the next two, I think next month is about community organizations and so Bike Indianapolis, Bicycle Indiana, Hills by Design. And then the next month in August will be about greenways and trails updates. There's a lot of updates that are going on. I actually just did a spotlight on B&O trail and their bicycle tour that's coming up this weekend. And the funding for the matching funds for the B&O trail, actually part of that comes from their bike ride that's on Saturday. And there's some new miles that just literally this past week got done. And the people who are going on the ride will be some of the first people riding on the B&O, the new B&O trail. So that's exciting. Then we've got next week, Bicycle Garage Indy is celebrating 40 years in business, and we're having birthday parties at each of our locations. So it's Greenwood's 27th birthday, and we're going to be celebrating that on Tuesday, the 13th. And then the 16th to the 18th of June is the Major Taylor Invitational. Last year, they had the first Major Taylor gathering came to Indianapolis. Major Taylor's hometown is Indianapolis. And all these groups from all over the country came to Indianapolis and liked it so much, they're coming back again. So if you're interested in participating in that or welcoming all of these people from all over, there's lots of volunteer opportunities. Bike Indianapolis is the one that's organizing it, as well as the Major Taylor Cycling Club and of Indy, and they are they've got all sorts of volunteer opportunities. Some of them involve riding, and some of the ones that involve riding your bike also include a complimentary registration for the rest of the event. So you get to ride your bike, you get to volunteer, and you get to go to the whole rest of the event, which is a really great deal. And then night ride. A lot of people love the night ride. That is July 8th. And it's going to be starting in Lilly Corporate Complex. I don't know exactly where, but somewhere in the corporate complex. So a little bit different start than previous years. We have Bicycle Garage Indy has a e-bike demo on the 17th. So a week from Saturday. So if you're curious about e-bikes and want to test them out, come to our North Store between 11 and 4, and you can test out as many as you want. And then Sean is going to be hosting a cargo bike demo on the 17th or the 24th of June at our downtown location. So lots of activities going on. It's summer and bicycling is in full force, so it's great. So I think that's pretty much all I've got as far as announcements go. I was trying to think if there's any other things that I missed. And I will monitor the chat. So while they're doing their presentation, if you have any questions that you want go ahead and put them in the chat. If it makes sense for me to interrupt the presenters, I'll do that. Otherwise, we'll cover the questions and answer them after each presentation. And with that, I will turn this over to Sean. And Sean, you'll just have to tell me when to click for the next slides.
Okay, thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
And thank you folks for joining us today. It's nice to have you here for sure. So my name is Sean Hawk, and I've worked at Bicycle Garage Indy for about a little over 20 years, and it's been a really nice place to work. It's given me a great foundation for learning about bikes and the community, and it's just it's a great place to be. So my wife and I have a almost 70-year-old boy who loves to ride bikes. And Connie, if you want to hit the slides. So he's almost 7, and we've had a great experience so far. We started riding him in this large cargo bike when he was around 10 months old, and it doesn't really fit adults very well, but it does fit kids. It's got a bench seat, so there's a nice place to sit. There's a couple of seat belts, so you can have your occupants strapped in for a little bit more safety. And then a helmet's always a good idea. So that was a pretty easy start for us, because he was a pretty happy camper to be in there, just because it was pretty fun. And then Connie, if you want to move on to the next one. So this is the style of bike that we would call a front loader bike. So it gives you lots of room to carry stuff. It's nice because you can carry your snacks and your toys and your, games and all kinds of things that you might want to have. And one of the best parts is that you can talk to your kids pretty easily because they're right there with you. So that's been really nice for us. This morning I rode him down to the YMCA day camp, and he was a real chatterbox. So we had a nice chat on the way to camp. So it was pretty cool. And then if you will move to the next one. We were fortunate to get a bike that had a cover on it. So it was nice for different weather conditions, whether it's windy or rainy or snowing. I also use like a heating pad in the wintertime. So I'll plug a heating pad in for a little while inside of a blanket just to kind of warm things up. And then that'll last for a little while. Maybe gets us an extra 15, 20 minutes into a normal 30 or 40 minute bike ride in the wintertime, which is kind of handy. So it gives us a little more distance. And then if you'll move on to the next slide. Maybe the next one. There we go. So yeah, in all weather conditions, it does a pretty good job. A bike like this is handy, whether you have the seat on the front or on the back, because they make bikes with even rain covers for the back, which is pretty interesting. They look kind of large like this does, but it's also very easy to maneuver and handy, and they're not really that heavy. And this particular bike is not electric, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about plugging in a battery, but they do make a lot of electric options. And so if you do consider an electric bike, it's going to make the bike a little bit more easy to carry more weight and like to maneuver it around, because when you have that little bit of extra assistance, it's just more easy to balance things, even though the bike is a little bit heavier. Oh yeah, and this is a nice picture. This is how we got started riding, just inside the house. So we had a Strider bike inside the house where it was nice to just like scoot around. And it was almost like one of those baby walkers where you're just kind of like pushing the walker around to kind of get your balance. And for us, it worked out. It was nice as a Strider. And Connie, if you'll move on to the next one. This was more of just a photo opportunity, but we went out for a bike ride when it was super snowy out when he was little. But he didn't go on the whole ride. It was just a real quick trip around the neighborhood. But a pretty snowy day in March. We got maybe 6 or 8 inches that morning. It's pretty wild. If you'll hit the next slide, please. Oh yeah, and this was a really nice bike that we got to borrow for a little while. This is very similar to the bike that we owned before, with the wooden front end. This one has a styrofoam box with a large metal frame. So weight-wise, it's pretty similar weight, but having the motor on there is nice because, as I mentioned earlier, having the motor on there, especially if you're a smaller person, is going to make the bike a little bit easier to get moving, especially when you have weight in the front or in the back. And so that kind of gives you a little bit more of a, it kind of helps you balance things a little bit better, if you know what I mean. And a lot of these bikes are going to have integrated lights on the front and the back. So pretty handy for just daytime visibility and nighttime seeing as well. And then Connie, if you'll move to the next one. So for us, we started out with the balance bike inside the house, and then we did that outside the house for a while, and that worked great. And then we moved into a bike, as you see here. It's more like a 12-inch kids bike, has a pedal backwards coaster brake. And so it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes, because if you go from a bike that has no brakes to a coaster brake, kids kind of seem to naturally want to pedal forwards and then all of a sudden pedal backwards. And so that will kind of cause them to lose their momentum, and it makes it a little bit more of a challenge to learn to ride. So we did this for a while. We took the training wheels off, we'd put them back on, take them off, put them back on. And that was kind of like one of the fun parts, is because he was able to help take them off and put them back on. And eventually, after a couple of months, it was like we took them off, and then he just took off pedaling right away. It was just, it was great. But we had a challenge with that coaster brake for sure, because he'd want to pedal forwards real quick and then just casually pedal backwards, and that just really pauses your momentum quite a bit. And then Connor, if you'd move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So one thing that we like to do is we like to visit the bike shop as much as we can. William, my kid, probably goes there at least once a week. He gets to put his hands on everything, you know, touching, seeing everything. There's a lot to do. And so, like, if you're a family that's getting into biking, going to the bike shop is probably one of the more fun and cool things to do, because it kind of gives you, like, you know, things to see and touch, and, you know, you get to hear the sounds and the smell, and it's a whole experience, in my opinion. So that's kind of cool. And Connie, if you'll move on to the next slide. So this is my slideshow from last year. So this is getting to be a little bit of an older picture for him, but we don't have this bike anymore. But this was really nice because it was a really lightweight bike. It's got handbrakes, so it's a little bit easier for them to learn how to use the brakes instead of having the coaster brake. We added the rack on the back so he could carry stuff, because he really likes to be able to, like, you know, take snacks and stuffed animals and that kinds of stuff. So that was, you know, that kind of like added to the whole experience, I guess. So that was a great bike that we had. We don't have that one anymore because we've kind of aged out of that one. And Connie, if you'll move on to the next slide. Oh yeah, I remember this day. This was a fun day. It was kind of wild. He had a tough morning, and we were just kind of having a hard time getting out of the house. And so we got into the garage. We were like getting ready to get into the big cargo bike. And he's like, no, 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 I've got to ride my bike. And I'm like, no, it's kind of a long way. But he was like really insistent on riding his own bike. So I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. So we did. And it took a lot of communication and patience, which is something that is tough for me sometimes. So the communication part was critical because when you're riding with kids, they need to know what to expect. So you as the adult need to be able to direct them, what on what to do, when you need to slow down, when you're needing to speed up, if there's a car behind you, especially if you're riding, on the roads and not just on like a pedestrian pathway. So yeah, we got there that day to preschool. It was a great day. He was thrilled with himself. And remembering to, praise them when when they do good is huge. And even if they're not doing good, it's okay to, give them praise and kind of keep leading them in the right direction. Connie, if you'd move on to the next slide, please. And so sometimes, just to get him outside, I'm happy to have him outside to do anything. So if he's in his pajamas, that's okay. At some point, when you're an adult, you might not be able to ride in your pajamas, but when you're almost 7, it's probably not a big deal. If you'll hit the next slide, please. So as we've kind of been riding around more and more, he's started to ride on the mountain bike trails here in town, which is nice. We started out at first, it was pretty tough. We made it about 500 feet, and he was kind of like deciding that it was a little bit too much for him already. So that day we backed it off and we walked back out and we went home, and that was okay. So a lot of biking with kids is about patience and being understanding of like what their needs are and like what they're able to do day to day. And so some days are going to be easier than others for sure. And Connie, if you hit the next slide. So we've kind of experienced quite a few mountain bike trails around town here in Indianapolis, and then we decided to go down to Brown County, which is nice. It's a little bit more terrain and a little bit of a more technical, difficult trail. So we went and rode down there for a few miles. Looks like about 6 miles or so. And the nice part is there are lots of playgrounds at Brown County State Park, so that's pretty handy if you want to stop and have some fun. And then we did stop in Columbus for ice cream afterwards. So rewards are a big deal for us as far as just making sure we're behaving correctly and cooperating, that kind of thing. Connie, if you'll go to the next slide. And the nice part about things here in Indianapolis is that we do have multiple bicycle events here in town. So there are often kids events within the larger adult events. So this is us at a kids race. We enjoy doing that type of thing. It's fun for the kids to be out there together. And it's nice that the event promoters put that type of thing on for kids. If you'll move to the next one, please. For us, I'm just trying to get him out of the house to go do fun stuff. For our family, we don't have a TV, so we just enjoy having stuff to go do, and not necessarily like being inside doing stuff on a screen. So I'm always trying to go find stuff around town. This is us, a picture of us going to see our friend's house on Halloween with a big skeleton in the back. We're trying to always go to parks and go do stuff. Taking pictures of scenery, the woods, nature. It kind of makes it a little bit more exciting. And if you'll go to the next screen, and pardon me, in the background we have the trash truck. I'm just in my garage here. So yeah, this is us at the Southwest Way Mountain Bike Trails down on the south side. We've kind of been fortunate enough to get to go experience most of the trails here in the local area. And this summer, we're going to try to expand outwards a little bit to some stuff that's maybe a little bit further away. Maybe like go down to Cincinnati and see what they've got. And then there are some other places further away in Indiana, like Versailles. They've got some mountain bike trails. And then there's another spot too, but I can't think of what the name is right now.
Sean, they just opened some mountain bike trails this past month at Whitewater State Park.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I want to check those out too. I have no idea anything about them other than I just saw that they just recently opened them.
Cool. Well, we'll have to check it out. If you'll move on to the next slide, please. Oh yeah. So this is a picture of us riding back from we were at a dance class doing some stuff for fun. And it was just like a fall evening when it's getting dark out at 6 o'clock at night. And having some lights on, it shows the kids how to be as safe as possible, and also kind of helps them to learn just like all the different experiences you might have on a bike, where it might not be warm or sunny, but you kind of have to roll with it sometimes. If you move on to the next one. And this is like one of his most favorite things to do is riding in the snow. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think I would love it as a kid too. As an adult, I don't really even think about it anymore. I just kind of just do it. But I think as a kid, since it's all so new, it's just thrilling. So doing things like this, doing somewhat dangerous things carefully is a good way to learn how to do stuff as a kid, in my opinion. Being careful, of course. If you'll go to the next slide, please. Oh yeah, and so we've graduated off of the old green bike, and we now have a new mountain bike. On the next slide, please. So the new mountain bike we got was 20 inches instead of a 16, and it's a little bit more off-road oriented. It's got a suspension fork, so it's got a little bit more the ability to like roll over stuff, roots and rocks and bumps on the road. Excuse me. So that's been pretty neat. It's back here in the background. We are moving into a bigger bike this summer, probably a 24-inch. So that'll be kind of fun. We haven't gotten that one out of the box yet, but that'll be happening soon. Let's see. And then on this picture, that's got William here helping out at the bike shop. He is helping to bleed some brakes on a hydraulic brake system, it looks like. So that's one of the things I love about my bike shop is that we have, like my coworkers are very friendly, and they're able to kind of like help people in the right direction, and especially being patient with this guy to teach him how to do stuff, even if it's just for fun. And on the next slide, please. Okay, yeah, so here's part of the new bike. Super lightweight frame, which is really important for kids because since they're so small, sometimes if you have them on a bike that's too heavy, it's going to be it's just a lot for them to manage. So it's a lot for them to maneuver it around. It can kind of make them a little bit discouraged sometimes. This is a trigger shift bike instead of a grip style. So some kids can do the grip style pretty well. It depends a little bit on their hand and how strong their hand grip is. The style that we have is the thumb style. So your thumb is pretty strong. And so for kids, In some cases, this style of shifter is a little bit easier to use, where you just use your thumb to shift. This particular bike has some nicer brakes. It's got a suspension fork for, riding over like the rough terrain. But yeah, it's been a great bike for us for sure. And Connie, if you'll go to the next slide. So here we are, just out that same day, test riding that bike out. It was great. I was surprised at how much faster he was going to be with gears. So he's pretty speedy. And then here we are, like, this picture is probably a year or so old, and he's actually a ton faster now. So he's getting pretty difficult to keep up with. Connie, if you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so a real speed demon. You can see him like into the wind with his jacket, blazing up. He's really on the move. And the next slide. So another picture of us out at night. We were out doing some dog sitting at a friend's house. Having him set up with good lights, so that way he's confident in what he's able to see and he knows where he's going. Taillights, of course, for safety. Just pretty critical kinds of things that you want to have like planned ahead for when you're riding with kids. And so one thing that we try to do is we try to have like our like a to-go bag almost. So we have like stuff that's ready to go like for our bike ride. So when we're ready to go on the bike ride, we have like a couple of quick snacks. There's a quick first aid kit. The helmet's almost always attached to it. There might be lights in there. And we just have like all of our stuff ready to go. So like all of a sudden, if you're ready to go for a bike ride, it's like, let's go, grab the bag, time to go. And Connie, if we go to the next slide, please. Just another fun picture of us out for a bike ride. We're on the Monon Trail Detour here, which now looks quite a bit different since they've rebuilt the bridge and stuff. But we're out riding with our friend Joey, having a good time for sure. And is there another slide? We might have a couple more. Oh yeah. This is a nice picture of us mountain biking last year. Just out for a fun time at Fort Harrison, it looks like. And he's gotten quite a bit taller now, so it's an old picture for sure. And then do we have any more? Oh yeah, Town Run, we rode there a little bit. And that's a nice trail, like especially if you're wanting to like start out with kids mountain biking, because it's a pretty it's a great beginner trail to go on. And they have two sections where you can ride like a smaller loop, or you can do like a longer loop also. And is there another slide? Oh yeah, back out to mountain biking with Joey at Town Run. So nice one there. Yep. And then since we did have that nicer mountain bike and we were going to be biking to school, I didn't want to have to lock up a really fancy kids mountain bike at school. So we bought a less expensive option. So this one was a little bit more basic, but just single speed, handbrakes, so it wasn't like a super high end bike, but it was a great option for us at the time for sure. And let's see, just out in the neighborhood, riding around, having fun. It's always good to go like see what you can find. I know like downtown there's like the King Kong statue, which is over at near Chatham Tap and like the Metro Pub. So it's kind of like a cool thing to go see if you're looking for like something unique to find. But yeah, like finding those kind of fun experiences is pretty cool. And then we have another one. Oh yeah, Bike to Work Day. This is last year, and then we also participated this year, which was super fun. Nice big crowd. They give out some snacks and coffee, and it was just fun to ride down there. The weather was great. Being able to ride on the cultural trail for about half of our ride is also pretty hard to beat because we do live downtown, so that makes it pretty handy. Just to like get around and do stuff. Yep, here we are at Bike to Work Day. He's right there in the middle of the action, keeping an eye on things. Always, he always likes to get like the stickers and like the fun stuff they have to give out. And I think this might be our last slide. This is me and or myself and William and our good friend Joey out riding around on the Fall Creek Trail, just out enjoying some nice weather. So that's about all I can think of as far as like kids biking stuff. I'm definitely open for questions. But yeah, my name's Sean. It's been nice to chat with you guys.
Yes, thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, it's fun to see all those photos of William because now I've seen him this year and he really has grown quite a bit. So
Yeah,
yeah, if you do this again next year, you'll have to update some of the photos.
yeah, I totally will for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I took some cool photos of William at Bike to Work Day this last year, and they had a little skills course, and he nailed it. He did really, really good. I was
Yeah.
not, I was fearful enough I wasn't going to try that. So
Yeah, he's pretty impressive on a bike.
yeah, he's doing great.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
all right, so I will go ahead and turn this over to Ross and Sean. I'll go ahead and mute you
Yep.
and myself.
Awesome. All right, I think everybody should be able to see my screen there. It says biking with kids. I'm Ross Reinhardt, and I have kids, and we bike. So I thought it'd be fun to share some of the things that we found helpful and tips along the way. Um, my kids have it's been a really kind of like a joyful thing for us. It introduced a lot of adventure to our family, so much so my daughter actually is kind of organized time when she's talking to people about like before we would ride bikes around to all these places and after, because it kind of unlocked a whole world of adventure and a different experience of our city together. So it's fun to share. It's fun to share this with other people. So let me. This is I'm going to start off by kind of talking about some of the progression as our kids started out pretty young and things that we found helpful at each stage. This was kind of our first stage when the kids were really tiny at that point, and we started off with a bike trailer. The bike trailer, some advantages to it is it gave us an entry point to riding with the kids and bringing them around to places that wasn't super expensive, at least compared to buying a specialized bicycle. And it had the advantage that like if you're going to the farmer's market or the grocery store, you can pop it off the bike and it becomes like a shopping cart that the kids and all their stuff can ride along in as well. Um, so if you're going to the grocery store to pick up groceries, as you see in one of the pictures, it's also super helpful for all that food the kids eat. If you want to go pick up some groceries to take home for them, a lot of them the seat lays down and it turns into a relatively inexpensive way to carry lots of stuff. One thing we didn't like about the trailer is it was a lot harder to talk to the kids. Usually when we're riding somewhere, they're kind of hunkered down in the trailer and they might just fall asleep sometimes in there. So we started experimenting with some other options. They were getting too big for the trailer anyway. So we started looking at ways that we could bring them along on our bicycle with us. And one of my favorite things, one of the biggest bangs for the buck that we've spent so far on trying to figure out some of this is the Doolittle seat that you see pictured there. That darn thing has been so useful. It fits on a variety of bike types and geometries, and it's relatively inexpensive for what it is. And you can see our little guy on the front of the bike there as we're taking our Christmas tree to be recycled. He's sitting on that. He loves it. He's 6 years old now. He's getting a little big for it at this point, but all up until this point, it's just been perfect. It gets them up in front of you, and we've had so many good conversations that just out of the blue, they're sitting right there and they can start talking to you. And a hazard of using that seat in the front though is they end up with quite the opinions on route. So he's quite the front seat driver, I guess. Now he'll be like, "You're not taking the shortcut. There's another way you should go." So it's fun to see them be able to explore their surroundings and have those opinions. Another seat that I've used a little bit less, but that has been helpful for the bigger kids is this one that kind of is clipped onto our back rack. If you have a really sturdy back rack, this one, it actually has some additional reinforcement that comes with the seat, to help, not break your rack. And the kid can sit back there and it gives them some foot pedals. And we got that from the website there that was listed. So those were pretty helpful. We started, as the kids kept getting bigger, that started getting a little bit harder and harder. We have 3 kids right now that ages 6 to 10. And so as they got bigger, we started exploring some other options here, and we got into cargo bikes, which I had no idea was a thing before. And we found out that it was a thing. And this one here that's pictured on the left is it's from a company called Yuba, and it's the Mundo model. We're just gone out to eat this night, and we were getting back on. That's what this video is of. But the bike itself has been really great for the older kids, just to be able to jump on and go. One of the biggest struggles that I've experienced with the kids is not that like a lot of times our kids really want to go and ride their bikes, but not all the destinations we go to is it completely safe. There's a lot of danger from other cars moving around on the road. And so one thing I've appreciated about going places, places we have to go, like the doctor, or out to eat, is if I can just put them on the bike on the Yuba Mundo with me, it takes some stress off of me because I can just focus on riding, and now don't have to worry about the little person on the bike and doing the extra kind of instruction and watching out for them as a separate entity. Yeah, there's a picture of it with the groceries. Once again, there's a common theme here. Kids are eating a lot of food. It's been really helpful for bringing home our whole hauls of groceries as well. So carrying the kids and their food. On the right, one thing that I found helpful about the Yuba Mundo is that you can also trail a bike with it. So sometimes if we want to go over to, like, say, the Nickel Plate Trail up here and ride, but it's, I wasn't really comfortable with them riding some of the in-between, you can trail their bike over there, and then let them ride. The Yuba Mundo, we visited Bicycle Garage Indy North, and the kids saw that there was a Yuba Mundo for sale there. So now every time we see somebody and they say something about the bike, they tell them, you can get it at Bicycle Garage. So they're pretty excited about that bicycle. As you saw in Sean's presentation, there's a picture of the more box style cargo bike as well. So there's options out there in cargo bike. So as far as tips, I'll just start off with the thing that's been the biggest for us, and that's just been having fun destinations. Our kids, for whatever reason, just haven't been as much of a fan of just riding without a destination we're going to. Maybe that's because we've gone to fun destinations and so they expect them now. I'm not sure, but they don't have to be complicated destinations either. This playground near their house is one of their absolute favorites to ride their bikes to. There's farmers markets, going out to eat. Ice cream is a favorite. We've been doing something recently where there's an Italian market near us that sells fruit-based sodas, and so another favorite thing is, like, let's go on a bike ride and we'll go get a soda from the Italian market. So having those fun destinations, it seems to really give them that motivation that, hey, I'm doing something, I'm going somewhere, and they seem to really enjoy that. So if you're looking to get them out, fun destinations is, at least for us, having places you're going has been super key. We're starting to get into so where some of the kids are getting a little bit big for the cargo bike at this point. So I've been doing a lot of working with our oldest on riding her own bike, and some things I've been finding helpful there so far. The biggest one is just verbalizing what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, where I'm looking. It kind of does 2 things, and the first is it gives her kind of a heads up as to what's coming up next. And what's happening, which seems to kind of build her confidence. So she's not always feeling a little bit behind the situation. Turns aren't as much of a surprise then. But it also has helped her know what to look for, and how to position herself. So when we go to turn left, for example, I'll kind of out loud just talk about, oh, I'm getting in the left-hand part of the lane. I'm, looking for traffic, making sure they're not going to come past us, and just talk through what I'm looking for, and what I'm doing. And that's helped her kind of build the same thought processes and be able to do the same things. Another one, it's kind of, it seems almost silly. It's so simple, but we've been using this a lot where occasionally she'll feel a little bit tired on a little bit of an uphill or something. And just being able to reach your hand out and kind of, lightly be able to put it on their back while you're riding next to them to give a boost. It's been a lifesaver for us. There's been some situations where, you're on the road and it's a little bit of an uphill, and she just needs that little bit of a boost. Um, I think it's also a bit of a reassurance too. You're able to put your hand on their back, let them know you're not riding off without them, and it gives them that little boost. That's a silly little trick that's worked really well for us in several different situations. One cautionary tale that we had during our transition to her riding her bike more was we started out with kind of a cheaper bike. We thought, well, she's going to outgrow it pretty quickly. And so we got a bit of a cheaper bike for her, but it ended up really discouraging her because it was clunkier, heavier. The gearing was weird. And it was just a lot harder for her to pedal. We ended up investing in a bike that had some more quality components that was a lot easier for her to ride. And it was just night and day. She went from like being really frustrated with riding to just enjoying it a lot more. So beware of some of those cheaper bikes out there that could be a discouragement. Uh, yeah, another thing that has been super important for me to learn specifically is to find and respect their limits and mine. There's a picture on the left. There's a guy, Tom Flood, on Twitter, and this is one of his pictures. But I don't know that I myself would ride in that location. So that's the reality that we all face as we go out there is varying degrees of safe infrastructure, and the danger from the automobile traffic nearby, and just being able to find what their limit is, which is going to probably be less than mine, is something that I've had to be really attuned to. The picture on the right is a place near our house. You can't really see so well in the picture, but the road's up a little higher, so the car bumpers are kind of like right at your eye level in some places. And that's an example of, it doesn't necessarily look particularly scary, but that was a place where my daughter was nervous about riding initially because of the speed and the proximity of the traffic on the road next to it. And so we would find alternate routes, or make alternate plans. Because when she would hit that point of being stressed out, it no longer became something she wanted to engage with, and it was fun for her. And also being aware of your own limits. There's certain days where it takes work to try to keep them safe from proximity to other cars and whatnot, and to talk through all that stuff out loud. And some days we either just load her up on the Yuba or maybe just try to make alternative plans like walk somewhere instead of ride, uh, because you have to be conscious of your own limits as well. Just a few kind of like odds and ends that we found helpful. We tend to ride through the year, and in the winter, here's a few things that the kids found helpful. There's you can get little warm things that go underneath their helmet, keep their ears warm. They were huge fans of that. Um, if you get inexpensive ski goggles, they've been really, the kids have been really have fans of having those for when it's super cold out. And they also discovered, this was the kids' idea, not mine, that those paper masks can double as a nice little face warmer. They keep your face warm when it's particularly cold outside. So that's some of our kind of typical gear when it gets super cold outside. And then safety, I'm kind of a safety nut, maybe more than others. But these orange flags, there's a bin of them at Bicycle Garage Indy, which is where we've been getting them. And I put those on all their little bikes when we're out riding around. It increases their visibility, kind of brings it up a little bit higher. And the flag kind of waves around, so it's extra super visible. When I'm riding out with the kids on like the Yuba, or pretty much anytime, I'm kind of concerned about side visibility. So especially once we started riding with the kids, I use these little reflectors that you can clip on your spokes, that kind of increase the profile of your wheel from the side. when light's shown on it. And I also have these little side reflectors. It's a Bright Side is the brand name, but they flash yellow to the sides to help increase that side visibility. Of course, there's also reflective belts and vests that, you know, one thing, kind of like Sean was talking about the go bag. Yeah, I like to kind of pack those. They don't take up like a lot of room, but if we happen to be out after dark and end up in a place where I'm a little concerned about visibility, it's nice to have the option to pull those out and throw them on real quick. And if it's a place where I'm particularly concerned about, you know, either the volume of traffic or whatever, sometimes I'll bring like my really bright flashlight to illuminate road crossings and whatnot for additional safety when we're crossing over. That's pretty much what I got there. Like I said, it's been a huge exciting thing, you know, for our family to be able to get out and experience our city in this way. So hopefully some of these tips might help you get out and enjoy the ride with your kids.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think I mentioned it before, but we had just this past weekend a kids ride, our first ever kids ride at Bicycle Garage Indy, and Sean led it on Sunday, and there were 18 people who attended, kids and adults, and they all had a great time. So we're looking at potentially doing that again. So if you are interested, let us know. Either shoot me an email or make a comment if you see this video afterwards, and let us know if you would like to see more of those types of events. Sean, did you have anything else to add about the kids ride?
No, we had a terrific time. It was nice to meet everybody. I think it's something that we're going to look forward to having again.
Great. Yeah, if you follow Bicycle Garage Indy on Facebook, we have a post with photos from that. And it was really neat. There was some really great photos with the skyline of Indianapolis in the background, and people riding and people standing with their bikes, and as well as photos of people riding, you know, kids and adults. It's really cool. I don't think I didn't see any comments or questions, but yeah, one of the things I noticed at the federal level, and you know, we were talking a little bit about coaster brakes, and there's some CDC, I have to look it back up, but CDC is looking at changing the braking system for kids' bikes, or changing something about the regulation of that. And it's in a public comment period right now. And I echo Sean, having taught young people how to ride a bike for the first time. Coaster brakes are really difficult for them to learn. I like to separate braking from pedaling. So having hand brakes where you squeeze the hand brakes and that's how you stop is a lot easier to teach than you pedal backwards, because they don't know whether they're going forward or backwards sometimes, especially when they're really young. But anyway, there are a couple of comments. Any suggestions other than the Monon, which can be very busy? Yeah, so I would suggest, actually, Fall Creek Trail is my favorite trail. It goes from Fort Harrison State Park to Riverside Park, and there's a 7-mile section that doesn't have any road crossings whatsoever, and it's not nearly as busy as the Monon is. The Monon south part, like I would say south of 38th Street, is a lot wider now. They redid it, and it's also less traveled south of Broad Ripple. And there's some cool murals around 52nd Street, and there's a playground, you know, so there's some really fun things that you could do along there. And I guess I will defer to Sean. The cultural trail and Riverside is what he's putting down. So yeah, so there's the reason why I like the Fall Creek Trail is for that 7 mile section. It's like you're in a park because you're following a river and you're away from the roadway for a lot of it, and there are no road crossings, so you don't have to worry about anything other than the other people on the trail, which sometimes can be tricky, but it's not nearly as busy as the Monon. And then question about remote trails that Sean mentioned. So Megan, or if you want to,
Yeah. I'd also like to, I can say, I don't know if anybody mentioned the Pennsy Trail today, but I live out in Irvington and we have a rail trail out here called the Pennsy. And it goes, I'm not sure actually how far west it goes, but it goes out pretty far east to some nice playgrounds and stuff. And like right along it in Irvington are nice cafes and a record store. And it's really never busy, the Pennsy, and there are very few crossings, just as a side note. But Sean, you were talking about taking your kids on like mountain bike trails, which my 3-year-old is still on a balance bike, but I think it would be good to get her on some dirt trails. But I wonder how busy most of those were, and if you find that adult cyclists are respectful of kids on those trails. I mean, you must be because you go there, right?
Yeah, that's a great question for sure, because that's definitely one of our concerns as well. So for us, we started on the short 1 mile trail at Fort Harrison. And so it is a completely beginner trail. I mean, it's easy to walk. So if you're on a balance bike, it would be perfect. And as you know, as an adult, if you're on a bike, that's great. Or if you're walking, then it's going to be pretty easy as well. It's going to have a few, like small bridges to cross and maybe a little bit of a couple of short rocky sections, but it's very beginner friendly for sure. And so that would be that's where we started, and that's what worked great for us. Also, Town Run is nice. It's pretty beginner friendly also. It's just going to be a little bit longer, and you'll typically experience a lot more people at that trail. And Town Run is the one that's up at 96th and Allisonville. And then Fort Harrison, obviously they're kind of like in the Lawrence area.
John, do you know anything about the Fishers Flat Fork mountain bike trail?
No, we haven't been there yet. We need to go check those out.
I think that's relatively beginner friendly.
I bet you're right.
And then Washington Park has some open riding in their mountain bike skills thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Mauricio was just out there the other day, and he was saying how nice it was.
Yeah, so they have quite a few trails at Washington Park, but they're only open when they have the officers there, who run the program. But they actually have bikes there as well. But they sometimes set up remote things at like Bike to Work Day that William was riding on.
And there is a trail also outside of their gated area.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's a relatively new thing.
It is, yes.
And hopefully, of course, this is a little bit farther out. In the next year or so, there will be a new mountain bike park, specifically called Stone Eater Bike Park up in Lebanon. And it's specifically being built for NICA, which is the National Interscholastic Cycling League Association. And so it's built for the youth races, but it's not going to be as technical as some other mountain bike trails. But that's coming. They're building it as we speak. I don't know about Zionsville either. Zionsville has some mountain bike trails in their newer section. I think it's Warman, Overton, Warman, something like that. they have some mountain bike offshoots, but I don't know how difficult those are. Oops. Any other questions? All right, well, we will end today. Thank you so much to our two presenters and for joining us. And we will put the links to these presentations up, as well as the recording up on our Bicycle Garage YouTube channel, and there will be linked to it from the Lunch and Learn registration page. So you should be able to find it for future reference. So thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.